Alrighty, we are back with Chapter 6 of Catalyst by Lisa Beeson. Book 3 in the Transcendence series. Chapter 6. She recognized the music as someone doing a cover of an old Cat Stevens song on their acoustic guitar. It immediately brought her back to car rides with her dad. He loved listening to folk singers like Cat Stevens, Simon and Garfunkel, and the Mamas and the Papas. Peering into the almost gothic-looking greenhouse made of glass and patina-stained iron, she saw the radiant energies of the plants inside ebb and swell with the music. Making her way across the open space between the structures, she passed right by the service elevator, forgetting all about lunch. The greenhouse was calling her. When she opened the door, her nose was struck by the familiar loamy scent of plants and potting soil. But instead of her mom's garden, it felt like she had walked into another world. Almost every kind of plant imaginable was inside. Tropical, deciduous, and arid climate plants were all growing healthy and strong side by side. It was like walking through a living kaleidoscope cathedral, with all their energies melding and flowing together with the music. It was absolutely beautiful. Following the path that wound its way through the iron and glass enclosure, she could feel herself being drawn into the flow as well. The song ended and the person immediately went into playing In My Life by the Beatles. She reached out her field of awareness, and just as she expected, the song was coming from George. She felt his energy connect to and coax the energies of the plants around him. The more she concentrated on it, the more she understood it. There was a kinetic will behind what he was doing that the plants were responding to. She pictured their cells slowly multiplying and expanding the more he coaxed. She likened it to what Ozza does with human cells, speeding up their processes and enhancing their efficiency to promote healing and wellness. It all began making sense. She remembered Absalom saying that will was one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and will is just focused intent. She realized that the kinetic will, or intent, George and Ozza were using was behind everything. Everything she could do. Everything the progenies could do. Even normal humans. If they felt something strong enough or wanted something bad enough, they could impose their will and affect the world around them. Is it really that simple? What if I'm not just randomly picking up other progenies' abilities? What if I've always had the potential to do these things, and I'm just realizing how to do it by understanding their methods? It was something to consider, but unless a new progeny came to Sion's Keep and she tried to perform their ability without amping them, there was no way to be sure. Ari stopped on the path and reached out to connect with the energy of a tomato plant near her, and used her kinetic will to make it grow. She pictured in her mind the expansion of proteins in the cell walls, loosening and stretching the cellulose, polysaccharides, and pectin, making the cells grow in size. She willed the plant to absorb more phosphorus and water from the soil to help with mitosis. The whole process of cell division was clear in her mind. Opening her eyes, she noticed that the plant was starting to reach and grow out towards her. A new tomato emerged, ballooning and reddening right in front of her. She stopped when the tomato reached its full ripeness, and her heart did an excited flip. I did it! I can make things grow! The effort had sapped some of her energy, but she did it. Just as she was moving down the path to try again on a different plant, the song ended. George must have heard the click and squeak of her aluminum crutches as she moved, because he called out, "Is someone there?" She immediately stopped in surprise. He sounded a lot closer than she had expected, and she didn't want to get caught making things rapidly grow. Except for Cam, no one knew that she could emulate other progenies' abilities, and what she had just realized was huge. She was on the verge of understanding her potential power as a Fluxi. Not the evil aspects, but the beautiful possibilities. The possibility that she could actually be a force of greatness. She had no idea what the future had in store for her, or what she would become. If after she reached maturity, she could still manage to be herself. But while she was trying to figure it out, she felt a deep-seated need to keep it all under wraps. She needed time to learn how to harness and control the power within her, to make sure she could focus it and not let it take over and overwhelm her. Like Cale had said, people fear things they don't understand, and she was deathly afraid of the whole better safe than sorry mentality people tend to adopt when dealing with potential threats. One wrong move could be the end of what she's found here with these people. The end of her. So, not chancing it, she decided to put a pin in her experimenting for the moment and called back to George. "Yes, it's me." Tracking his energy, she latched on and folded the pole to a little alcove area a little further down and around the corner from where she was. "Sorry to intrude, but I heard your music and saw how it was affecting the plants, and I couldn't help myself," she said as she broke the connection and turned the corner. He was sitting on a bench with his guitar on his lap, looking at her curiously. He was one of the adults that always seemed to be uneasy around her. "What are you doing up here? Did Marin send you?" he asked, and then his nose wrinkled as he sniffed and his eyes widened. "Oh God, were you just with Enzo?" he asked in disbelief. "Yes, why?" Ari asked apprehensively as she came closer. Was she not supposed to visit with Enzo? Was she going to be in trouble? "You didn't partake, did you?" he asked, his face taut with worry. Confused, Ari sniffed her clothes, wondering what he had smelled on her that freaked him out. And she realized that... "Leave your sisters alone." "Thank you." Confused, Ari sniffed her clothes, wondering what he had smelled on her that freaked him out. And she realized that she smelled like weed. "Oh, no, I didn't partake of anything. He was just smoking his pipe while we talked," she assured him. George sighed in relief. "Good. But make sure to change those clothes before you go anywhere else," he told her. "Gordon and the rest of them would tear me a new one if they knew I was letting him use that stuff to get high, let alone in the presence of one of the kids." "Why do you let him do it if you'd get in trouble?" she asked. "He's an old man who doesn't ask for much," George said with a shrug. "He's been through enough. Why begrudge him a few vices that can help him live out his remaining years in peace?" "What do you grow it for, if not for that?" "I started growing the cannabis plants to use in my experiments. Maya and I are really close to something that we think could help people with Parkinson's and a few other neurological diseases." "Seriously? Oh, wow, that's awesome," she said sincerely. "Would it be okay if I shadowed you guys sometime? I'd love to help out any way I could." She wanted to learn anything the people of Scion's Keep could teach her. Like Cam had said, the place was full of smart people with awesome abilities. So far, she'd been spending most of her class time tutoring the others and reading Aza's anatomy books and various medical journals online, thinking that she'd like to go into the medical field. She figured that if she secretly learned how to heal like Aza, the more she knew about the human body, the better. She had told them that she thought she might be able to heal like Claudia, through subsonic sound waves, which was true. She told them what she had done with her friend and old piano teacher, Rachel, back in Georgia, explaining that Rachel's doctor had told her that she couldn't conceive because she had tubal blockages, and when Ari played the piano for her and tapped into her inner energy, she had pictured the tonal vibrations chipping away at the blockages until they were gone. Then, a couple weeks later, the Jacobs had come by to announce they were pregnant. But now, if she learned more about biochemistry, she might be able to diagnose and heal just through touch. Maya can analyze a biological substance by breaking it down to its most basic parts and identifying what it's made up of, by getting a sense of it through touch. That's why she became a biochemist, so she could actually put names to the things she was sensing and learn how they work and react together. If Ari could combine that ability with George and Aza's, there would be no limit to the things she could contribute to the world. She could find cures for diseases, antidotes for poisonous substances, and help famine-stricken countries by creating hearty, nutrition-packed, fast-growing food sources. All she needed was the knowledge. Yeah, sure," George said, sounding a bit surprised. None of the other really None of the other kids have really shown any interest in what we do. Val has only come up to the greenhouse once or twice, and I have to practically drag Alvaro up here just to get him to help out around here. I'd love to help out, she said honestly. My mom taught me all about gardening, and being up here around all these, she said, motioning to all the plants, would kind of be like being with her. She used to say there's nothing better for the soul than rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands in the soil. And I can practice making things grow. Sure, come up and help out whenever you want, he said with a nod. But then he looked at her curiously again. Could you really see the plants reacting to the music? Ari nodded. Yeah, they love it. Well, as much as plants can love anything, she said with a shrug. I can get a sense of them reacting to it. They grow much stronger and healthier with the music, but I've never actually seen it. It's beautiful, Ari said, and then she had an idea. What if I combine the ability to push images into people's minds with the reverse of what Enzo does with the animals? Maybe I can let him see what I'm seeing. I could maybe show you if you're willing to try. Like that telepathy thing you do with Cam? He asked. Yeah, kinda. I've never done it this way before, but I think it'll work. But if you don't want to try it, I understand. He thought it over for a second, but the temptation must have been too great, because he said, Sure, why not? Cool, Arya said, smiling. Then she nodded her head towards the bench she was sitting on. May I? She asked. Oh, yeah, sorry, he said as he scooted over to the left so she could sit. She sat down and laid her crutches on the ground. Would you mind if I use your guitar? He shook his head and handed it over to her. Okay, relax and close your eyes. I'll try not to look at you because that might be a little too weird for you to see yourself. Okay, he said warily. Then with a deep breath, he closed his eyes. Right, ready. Ari took her own deep, bracing breath and then made the mental connection. As George got used to the darkness behind his eyelids, he suddenly saw what must be Ari's view from the bench. At first, he only saw a still image, but then more images came one after another, almost like a stop-motion camera. The images came faster and faster until it became a smooth flow, like he was actually seeing through her eyes in real time. His muscles reflexively tensed at the shock of it. His mind could barely comprehend what he was seeing. Everything was so much more dynamic and saturated with impossible colors he couldn't even begin to describe. With a clarity and definition he'd never experienced before. It was hard to focus on one single thing. Did I hurt you? Ari asked, and it was as though he could feel what she was feeling. They were connected. She was worried for his well-being and nervous of his reaction. It was so strange being connected that way, but not frightening like he expected it would be. One moment, please. No, he answered in an awestruck whisper. I'm fine. He felt her relief. Is it working? She asked. She was still looking ahead, which he was thankful for. She had been right. He didn't think he could handle seeing himself right now. Yes, he answered. He felt her joy and excitement that she had pulled it off. Great. Okay. The colors that are kind of glowing around the plants, that's their radiant energy. Keep paying attention to that, and I'll start playing so you can see what I was talking about. She then started playing the intro to what he recognized as Israel Kamakawiwo's version of Over the Rainbow. Almost immediately, he saw the glowing colors around the plants flicker and intensify with the rhythm of the music. When she started singing, they reacted by swelling and melding together. How they swirled and contorted reminded him of colored ink dropped into water. She was right. It was beautiful. His babies really did love his music. And as she sang, he felt himself becoming entranced by the rich, dulcet tones of her voice as well. He could feel the powerful static energy coming off of her, like it had the other day in the courtyard. And he felt like he could do anything. As if on its own, his left hand came up towards the plant's energies. She looked over at his hand and saw the bright light that surrounded him surge towards the plants closest to him, and they began to grow, unfurling and reaching towards him. It was surreal. They were growing so rapidly. But then the song came to an end, and the plant's energies calmed down, and sadly, so did his. Ari broke the connection between them, and his vision and feelings were his own again. He looked over at the girl in awe. That was how she saw all the time. This strange alien child really was the miraculous being Maya said she was. "Thank you," he said, though the words seemed inadequate for the gratitude he felt. "Thank you for sharing that with me." She gave him a beautiful, bright smile and nodded at him. "You're an amazing musician." She shrugged the compliment off humbly. "Thanks. You're really good yourself. You, me, and Val should play together sometime," she said, and then chuckled to herself. "We'd be the weirdest trio ever, but we'd sound good." He chuckled at the thought, and then his cuff pinged. He looked down to see that it was a text from Marin. "Hey, babe, is Ari up there?" She missed lunch, and the twins said she went up there after breakfast. He quickly typed back that she was on her way down now. And then looked back over at Ari. "You better get downstairs. They're starting to get worried." "Oh, right," she said as she handed him back his guitar. "Don't forget to change your clothes," he reminded her as she reached down for her crutches. "I won't," she assured him. "What were you talking about with Enzo anyway?" "He just wanted to meet me," she said. "How come you call him by his first name?" Normally, George didn't like talking about personal stuff, but after what she had just done for him, he felt like she deserved an honest answer. "I hero worshipped the man when I was a kid. I absolutely adored him. But after he took off, he became less like my dad and more like the personification of the circus he traveled with. A larger-than-life spectacle that only came around about once a year. He's my father. But Rick Stanton, the man my mom married after he left, was my dad. He was the one that came to my baseball games and school functions, the one who was always around and taught me how to be a good man. So Enzo is Enzo, and Rick is Dad." Ari nodded in understanding, and he actually felt like she genuinely did understand. Then she stood up. "All right, well, see you later, George." "See ya, Ari," he said with a wave as she turned to go and made her way back down the path. Oh, and that was the end of Chapter 6. Whoop, whoop. Catalyst by Lisa Beeson. We'll be going on to Chapter 7 now, but in the next video. So, peace!